Hi, my name is Jasmine Kinninger, and today I will be presenting my answer to the question of CCR 1. How does your product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? Let's begin with how the snack that smiles back subverts supernatural horror conventions. To start, the film does not feature any sort of violence or gore. Steve Neal states that a common convention in horror is that the disruptions in horror films are often violent, which creates a sense of danger, establishes a frightening mood, and expresses pain and brutality. Films such as High Tension and My Bloody Valentine both adhere to this convention, as you can see in the photos below. But our film is subverting this convention, as each elimination of the characters show no gore or violence. Our film also challenges one of the most typical conventions of horror, which is dim, dark lighting. Almost the entirety of the film takes place in a brightly lit room, even when the first two characters are picked off. Most horror films, such as Halloween and The Exorcist, use darker lighting to create a suspenseful mood, but our film does the exact opposite, creating irony. Lastly, the sets in our film challenge the conventions, as it is common for horror movies to take place in settings such as warm homes, the wilderness, or medical facilities that are usually cluttered or messy, as you can see in films such as The Exorcist and Wolf Creek. The setting in our film is often inside of a modern, clean building, which establishes a safe space, the contrary of a typical horror setting. Let's take a look at how our film also adheres to the conventions of supernatural horror. Going back to lighting, although most of our film subverts this convention, the very last scene in the playground upholds this convention, as it is shot in an almost pitch black setting, which creates the typical uneasy aesthetic and implies a dark ending of doom for the oblivious girls. The setting is also not completely subverting the conventions. Bathroom scenes such as those in The Shining and Saw are common in horror films, in which we have our first two characters get eliminated in there. Moving on to our score, our film also adheres to the ominous music and sound effects in horror films. Our film features frightening and ominous music throughout, to heighten the fear of the viewers. Next, our film adheres to main characters in horror films being teens, such as in It, as the protagonists are teenagers. Our film also upholds the final girl in horror films always being white, for example, Olivia Hussey from Black Christmas. As you can see in our film, the final standing girl is indeed white. Finally, our film adheres to the supernatural horror genre, as the antagonist is not a person similar to the birds. In addition, supernatural horror films feature unrealistic things such as ghosts, zombies, or inanimate objects, like the doll from Annabelle. The characterization of goldfish thwarts reality, thus adhering to this convention. Now, I will discuss how the snack that smiles back represents social groups or issues. The characters in the film represent a typical group of teenage girls who are of higher middle class. The signs that give this away is that they are wearing comfortable clothing and are studying together in a big modern room, as Roland Barthes would say. Additionally, Stuart Hall's theory of representation is established when the group of friends who soon end up victims of the goldfish converse in a diverse community with people of different backgrounds. The difference in race is emphasized in how the order of the girls meet their fate. The Hispanic girl is first, the Asian girl next, and the only white girl is the last to live. In the film, the minorities are eliminated first, while the white girl is the last. Utilizing Levi-Strauss's theory of character juxtaposition, this racial juxtaposition is not only seen in the order in which they are eliminated in, but in simple scenes such as the couches they are simply studying on. While the two girls of minorities are sitting on the same couch together, the only white girl isolates herself away from the other two on the couch across from them, separating the minority away from the ethnic majority. The white girl is almost completely separated from the girls of minorities, establishing the social issue of lack of racial unity. This was my answer to CCR 1. Thank you for listening.